All right, wonderful students. It's time for another wonderful day of history. So we are going to be starting in World War II, talking about America's involvement in World War II. I think that's your other assignment for today. You have a short video to kind of introduce yourself again. One of the main things in World War II, one of the main ideas is that we were fighting against tyranny, against dictatorships, and against something called fascism. We said that Hitler, that Mussolini, that these dictators of Europe during World War II were fascists. And the thing is, we're starting to have that conversation again. So I want to have that conversation. What is fascism? And you may be wondering, why should I care? And Cardi B, like, of all people, you should care because you kind of like hate Trump. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but Cardi B just like a month ago, she interviewed one of the presidential candidates, Joe Biden. I mean, I don't know how you go from wop 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 to interviewing a presidential candidate, but okay, it's all good. Good for you, Cardi. But my whole thing is, and Cardi B hates Trump, right? And she says all these things about Trump. He's not a good president or whatever. And then other people come out and say, no, Cardi B's stupid. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's calling Trump a fascist, and she doesn't even know what that word means. So I want to kind of explore that today. I want to look into this kind of feud between Cardi B and President Trump and find out who's right. Is he actually acting kind of like a fascist, like Hitler or Mussolini? Or are people kind of making too big a deal out of things? So let's kind of get into that today. The first thing we need to do is we need to define a couple terms. The first term we need to know is, what is a democracy? Now, a democracy, write down this definition, is a system, in your guided notes, is a system of government by which the whole population kind of gets to vote for your leaders, or at least gets to vote for representatives. That's kind of how we have it in America. There's lots of forms of democracy. I'm not going to get into it. This is not a government class. But I think you kind of get that idea. You vote for people in a democracy. In a dictatorship, on the other hand, that's a form of government where you have one person in charge, and really his voice or her voice, pretty much only his voice is going to be the only thing that matters. Voting doesn't matter. There's no toleration for political pluralism, which means that you can't have another idea. If you say that what the dictator says is wrong, right, you kind of done. There's no independent programs or media, no independent news that can say, the dictator's not doing a good job. That's the difference. Democracy, everyone gets a voice. You can say that the president's not so good. Dictatorship, that doesn't happen. Only one person really gets a voice, and it's the dictator. All right, fascism. So let's move into fascism now. Fascism is not a form of government like democracy or dictatorship, not really. Fascism is an idea. It's an idea about how society should work. And part of that idea is how the government should work. And definitely fascists like dictators. But not all dictators are fascists. It's an important point. All fascists become dictators, but not all dictators are fascists. So, for example, here's this guy over here. I don't know if you know who that is. That is Joseph Stalin. He was the dictator of the Soviet Union during World War II. But that dude, not a fascist. He's a communist. Communists are never fascists. And we'll kind of talk about why. So let's get into it. Let's talk about what exactly is fascism. What are people really meaning when they say Donald Trump is a fascist? And are they right or are they wrong? Are they just making stuff up to make him look bad? All right, so here we go. Fascism is kind of hard to define. Again, it's an idea, and everyone has a slightly different idea of how it works. Historians, political scientists, other scholars have long debated the exact nature of fascism. Each group that has ever been described as a fascist, like Hitler or Mussolini, they're definitely described as fascists, but they're a little different. So there have been many definitions of fascism. Some have said that they're too wide, that the way that they're describing fascism is so broad that almost anyone would be a fascist. Other people say that the definitions are too narrow and only like Hitler and Mussolini would qualify. So I'm going to try and give you the best definition of fascism that I can find. And to do that, we have to go to the experts. We have to go to a person who is the king of studying fascism. And that guy's name is Robert Paxton. Now, Robert Paxton is a professor emeritus of social science at Columbia University in New York. Big university, very reputable. He is widely considered to be the father of fascism studies, and he broke down fascism into 7 characteristics. He said there's 7 things that people will do when they're fascists. Now, they don't always do it. You don't have to do all 7 to be a fascist, but you do have to do almost all of them most of the time. So let's go break that down. You're going to be taking notes in your guided notes today about what makes somebody a fascist. All right, so again, like I said, there's 7 things. The first one is this concept that Robert Paxton called the primacy of the group. Primacy means first. It means that you take care of your group before you take care of anyone else. Think about Hitler. He was willing to take care of his Nazi group. He killed 6 million Jews to do it. It's okay to screw over other people if you're doing it to support your group. Now, does Donald Trump do that? Does he actually screw over other people to support himself? I'm sure a lot of you will probably say yes, because a lot of us in Santa Ana don't really like Trump. But is it actually true? Now, he does say mean things sometimes, I'll give you that. But does he actually act against people to help himself? Here would be one piece of evidence I might play for you. Let's have a listen to this one. Now, this is from an interview that Trump did with Fox News. And the interviewer will ask him, in this next election, which is coming up in like 3 weeks now, we're almost there, will you accept the election? If Donald Trump, if you lose, will you give up power to the next president? Or will you try and hold on to it like a dictator? And this is what Trump said.
Suggesting that you might not accept the results of the election?
I have to see. Look, Hillary Clinton asked me the same thing.
Can you give a direct answer? You will accept the election?
I have to see. Look, I have to see. No, I'm not going to just say yes. I'm not going to say no. And I didn't last time either.
So, first of all, is Trump actually saying that he won't accept the election? No. He's saying he might not, which is, for me, terrifying by itself. We can't have just my opinion. I don't think we should have a president that threatens democracy. But my point, I guess, that I'm getting at is that Trump supporters, and maybe Trump himself, is kind of hinting that it might be okay to screw over other people out of their votes. Even if the majority of people don't vote for him, maybe he won't accept that. To support his own group, to support Trump and Trump supporters. Now, is that enough to call him a fascist for this reason? Make up your own mind, right? First of all, he hasn't done it, right? He hasn't actually refused to accept the election. He just said he might not. So is that enough to actually say that, he's screwing over other people? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Make up your own mind on that one. So again, this is kind of why fascism is hard to define. Is that enough? I think we could all agree that when Hitler killed 6 million Jews, that's enough. He definitely screwed them over. Has Trump really screwed over the other people yet? And has he screwed them over enough to call him a fascist? Up to you. You make a decision. All right, number 2. The second thing that fascists do is they believe that their group is the victim. This justifies any behavior against the group's enemies. You can do anything to all your enemies if your enemies are always making you the victim, right? That's not you being a bully. That's you standing up for yourself. And that's how fascists usually think. They always think of themselves as a victim. Again, I bring up Hitler. He blamed the Jews, right? He said they controlled the banks. He said the Jews were the reason Germany lost World War I. So there's always victimhood in fascism. Does Trump think of himself as a victim? Well, I put up some tweets. This one is about the news media making fun of him because he has bad grammar sometimes on tweets. And Trump is saying, I don't have bad grammar. I just capitalize things for emphasis, even if they're not, grammatically correct, which is kind of true. He's not totally lying on that. But again, it makes him look like the victim, like the fake news is out to get him. That's my argument. Here's another one. This is a horrible and very unfair situation. The real crimes are on the other side. He's talking about some of his advisors had been indicted for crimes. And he said, this is so unfair. It's the Democrats who are doing it. We're the victim. This one, he talks about how President Obama tapped his phones during the election, which is not totally true, but again, makes himself look like the victim. This one talks about the FBI spying on his campaign. Again, makes him look like the victim. And again, this isn't really true. How about this one? He talks about the fake news media damaging innocent and decent people, meaning his Trump supporters. Again, victimhood, right? The news medium is making him a victim. This one, he talked about how he won the presidential election, and now there's professional protesters incited by the media are protesting very unfair. So to me, again, if you're asking my opinion on this one, does Trump make his group out to be the victim? Yeah, 100%. He does this as much as any fascist has ever done in history. Again, make up your own mind, though. Maybe you feel I'm not being fair to Trump, right? Make up your own mind. I feel like I'm giving some good evidence, but again, maybe you're like, he's just kidding, right? I don't know. However you justify it, have an opinion, but try and have some reasons for it, right? It makes sense. All right, number 3. The belief that individualism, okay, this is a hard one to understand. The belief that individualism and liberalism enable dangerous decadence and have a negative effect on the group. What it means is the idea that thinking for yourself, having education that's not necessarily traditional, that makes people weak, right? And it makes the whole group have a negative effect, that we all become weak. Usually fascists kind of think about this. They usually pick on young people like you, and they'll say things like, oh, when I was your age, I'd be in gym and we'd climb ropes, and now you guys just, play video games and you're all soft, That's usually the kinds of things they say. Or fascists really are against gay people. They'll say, "Oh, look what's happening. You're having all these gay people now, and it's going to be bad because everyone's going to be weak or gay or I don't know, whatever their argument is." That's usually what fascists do. That's what they mean by liberalism having a negative effect on the group. Trump, I don't know, man. I don't know if he really does that so much. He's not really anti-gay. I know a lot of people like to say he's anti-gay. He's not really. I mean, he's not like the most prideful person either, right? Not like the most pro-LGBTQ person ever, but he's not really like hating on gays that much. He's not really hating on young people watching TV and making them weak, right? That's not really something he talks about, probably because he likes to watch TV so much. The only thing I could really find is that he does complain about how we're teaching youth, how we're teaching you guys now, that we're teaching too much about the struggles of Black people and Hispanics and the struggles of colored people and women, right? And he's like, no, we should go back to the old school where, we just taught about American independence and how Americans pulled themselves out from the boots and we win all the wars. And, that's good history too. That's the only thing I can think of where he's like, yeah, we're being a little liberal with something and it might make us weak. So again, make up your own mind. Do you think that's enough to call him a fascist? Obviously, in my opinion, I would say no. This is probably the one that I would be like, this is really the one that I don't think he really does a whole lot at all. But again, make up your own opinion. Maybe you thought of something else that he did that is more like this that I didn't think of. Number 4, and stay with me. We don't have a whole lot more. It's just keep paying attention. I appreciate your efforts so far. All right, number 4. There's a strong sense of community or brotherhood in fascism. That's why rallies are a big part of fascism. Hitler, Mussolini, they would go into big stadiums with thousands of people and they'd be on a big stage and they make a big emotional speech. And everyone comes together at these big rallies and everyone's happy. Look at these people. Look how happy they are to be here with each other, right? I would say that yes, Trump supporters have a good amount of community, of brotherhood. They feel good to be around each other. My parents are big Trump supporters, so I get to see this. They are hanging out with their Trump friends all the time. They pretty much don't have any other friends anymore. All their other friends who weren't Trump supporters, they don't hang out with anymore. And that's the other part of fascism. Yes, you have this common conviction. Yes, you're all together. But if someone goes against your group, you use exclusionary violence, meaning that you kick them out, right? And it can be violent, right? You can violently kick them out. Now, the only thing I can think of with that is that there really haven't been a whole lot of members of Trump's party who have said anything bad about him. The one person I can think of who from the beginning really was like, this isn't looking so great, was Justin Amash. He's very conservative, very Republican. He came out against Trump. And what did the Republican Party do to him? They kicked him out of the party. He's no longer a Republican. He's an independent. He's still a senator, or I'm sorry, congressman? No, congressman, I think. But he's still in government. But he has to be an independent now. So again, is the sense of community, is that something you see with Trump? Is exclusion something you see? Or do you think that because it wasn't violent, how they got rid of Justin Amash, maybe you're like, that's not good enough. That's not enough for me to call him a fascist. Make up your own mind. This is one where I'm like, I think it could go either way. Make up your own mind on it. However, I will say this, though. Oh, never mind. Never mind. I won't say anything. I guess that was it. That was the end of that slide. Moving on. All right. Almost done. Almost done. We got like 3 more. Number 5. Individual self-esteem. There we go. I'm back. Individual self-esteem is tied up in the grandeur of the group. Robert Paxton called this the enhanced sense of identity and belonging. You only feel good about yourself when you're part of the group. When you're by yourself, you're like, my life's okay. Whatever, I'm okay. But when you're part of the group, you're like, oh yeah, I'm part of something. I feel good about myself because I'm part of this group. Now, that's not just fascist, right? I think a lot of us have that. Maybe you're into K-pop. Don't you kind of feel happy when you're like around other people who like K-pop, right? If you're into cars, aren't you happy when you're around other car people? So I think like there's a lot of groups to do this, but fascists do this a little bit more. And this is what I mean. I have a picture of sad Trump, and there are times where you do see Trump and he's just not very energetic. However, if you put him in front of a crowd, right? You get a MAGA hat on, put him in front of a crowd, there we go. Put a MAGA hat on him, right? Put a button on him. Suddenly he's a happy dude. And again, I see this with my parents too. Once they're part of that group, once they're at a rally, they're having a lot more fun. You see this with boat parades, right? And you have all these people with big flags. It's not just a parade for Trump. Notice how they all have these big flags? That's because it's part of the grandeur of the group. You need it to feel big and grand. So you have these big flags and you put a big boat parade together. That's a big part of fascism. So again, do you think that this qualifies Trump to be a fascist for number 5? I guess personally, I would say probably, yeah. But again, make up your own mind. Don't listen to me. Think for yourself. All right, number 6. Extreme support of a natural leader who is always a male. In fascism, the leader of the country is always a man. Cannot have women in fascism. Cannot. It's against the rules of fascism. Women are not abused in fascism, but they are not respected as far as like politically. They're respected as far as women being in the home and taking care of the kids, but that's their role in fascism. Women should be at home taking care of the kids. I'm not saying that. That's what fascists would say. Also, they have extreme support. In fascism, you generally believe that no matter what happens to your leader, you will always support them. Shoot, Donald Trump supporters say that. No matter what you tell me about Donald Trump, I'm still going to support him. So let's see what we have here. Now, this results in one man taking on the role of the national savior. So there's only one man who can do the entire job for the country. That's part of fascism. In democracy, we believe there's lots of people, right? There's Congress, there's the Senate, there's a Supreme Court, there's a president. They're all part of the goal of saving the country or fixing the country. In fascism, only one person. This is from 2016. Donald Trump says, "I alone can fix the system." Here's another one. And savior. When you think of a savior, you think of like Jesus, right? Jesus was the savior of humanity. Donald Trump has talked about himself as the chosen one. And he said he was just joking, right? And maybe he was. But that is something that he said a couple times. He calls himself the chosen one, like a savior. He's also very into being male, right? He's very into machismo, I'm very masculine. This was from 2016 too, when someone made fun of his hands, saying that his hands were small. And Donald Trump said, and he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee you. I'm sorry, that's my Trump impression. But obviously he's talking about his brain, right? If he has small hands, he must have a small brain. Obviously not brain, you know what I'm talking about. But it shows his machismo, right? His masculinity. And again, that's very much a fascist thing. You need to show how masculine you are. Very much so. Benito Mussolini was great at it. Very masculine dude. Anyway, so again, with this one, would I say that this is a characteristic of fascism for Trump? I think I would, but again, please make up your own mind. All right, last one. Number 7. The beauty of violence and of will when they are devoted to a group's success in a Darwinian struggle. All right, he talks about how fascists believe there's a beauty in violence, right? That there's a righteous violence. If you're better than someone and someone else is going to ruin your country, yeah, use violence against them. That's what fascists would say. They're not going to say, oh, you wait for the cops, right? They're not going to say, oh, you talk it out. They're going to say, no, you beat someone's ass. Now, does Donald Trump say that kind of stuff? Do his supporters do that kind of stuff? I don't know. Here's some evidence. This is a clip from a Trump rally. You have the Trump supporter pushing someone who's not a Trump supporter. Is that enough to be violent? Is that enough to call that fascist? I don't know. Up to you. Here's another one from a Trump rally, and you have the Trump supporter punching a non-Trump supporter. Does that look like fascism to you? Is that enough violence? Or does someone have to get killed for it to be fascism for you? What do you think? Here's a clip from Charlottesville. These were people marching with tiki torches saying that Jews will not replace us. It's kind of a little violent in there, I guess. This is also from Charlottesville. There was a Trump supporter who ran their car into a group of protesters. And then this is something the president said himself. Knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously, okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you. I will pay for the legal fees. I promise. He was talking about knocking people out if there are people at his rallies that weren't Trump supporters or were saying stuff bad about him. So, again, is that celebrating the beauty of violence? I don't know. He's certainly not talking about killing people, right? It's not like Mussolini. It's not like Hitler where they're talking about killing people. They're talking about beating them up. But you know what? That's actually how Hitler started. He didn't start by saying, let's kill people. He started with these little groups of people who'd go out and beat people up. And again, I'm not trying to say Trump's Hitler. He's not. That's not a fair comparison, right? He hasn't killed 6 million Jews. There's a lot of things he hasn't done. Let's not be unfair to the man. But again, make up your own decision. So what do you think? What's your opinion? Do you think our president is a fascist? Is he not a fascist? Or is the answer somewhere in the middle? You know, please don't listen to me. Listen to me, consider what I say, but make up your own mind. I mean, if you ask me, I don't think I would call him a fascist. I think it's kind of hard to say, right? He's clearly not Mussolini. He's clearly not Hitler, at least not yet. And probably not ever, right? I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. Maybe I might call him fascist light or something like that. I don't know. But make up your own decision. I think one thing that hopefully we can come together on, though, is that hopefully we can all see, are there some things that he does that are fascist? Sure. Does that necessarily make him a fascist? That's your opinion. Could we also recognize that there are other people who do fascist things? I kind of picked on Trump today, right? Because that was the discussion I wanted to have. I wanted to talk about what Cardi B had been saying. But there are other people, too, that kind of do some of these things, right? Maybe you do some of these things. And by the way, is fascism even wrong? Maybe you think fascism's okay. Who am I to tell you that it's not, right? I don't like what happened in World War II. I don't like what Mussolini did. I really don't like what Hitler did. But who am I to tell you, right? You need to make your own values. And hopefully you think that killing people is wrong, but make up your own values. All right, that's what I have for you today. Make sure you filled out your notes, your guided notes today. Hopefully it wasn't too boring for you. I hope you learned something about fascism because I feel like a lot of people use this word and they don't really know what it means. All right, guys, that's all I have for you. Have a wonderful day. I will see you later.